It's been many months in the making, and it involved some grueling negotiations. But today, Canada finally signed that new trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico. The country's three leaders putting pen to paper at the G20 summit in Buenos Aires.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The ceremony was hardly a certainty. There was last-minute wrangling over some issues, including Canada's dairy sector and tariff protection for Canadian-made cars and trucks. At one point, there was even talk Prime Minister Trudeau wouldn't take part unless Donald Trump removed those punishing tariffs he's imposed on Canadian steel and aluminum. In the end, Justin Trudeau sounded relieved to have the signing done, but there was no celebrating. While significant issues remain between Canada and the U.S., the Prime Minister was sounding conciliatory.
As a result, the tariff-free access that NAFTA guaranteed for more than 70% of Canada's total exports is secure. And that's essential for businesses, families, jobs, entrepreneurs, and hard-working people in every corner of our country. As I said, the task isn't done. There is more hard work ahead to build resilient, strong economies that support families everywhere in Canada. As I discussed with President Trump a few days ago, the recent plant closures by General Motors, which affects thousands of Canadian and American workers and their families, are a heavy blow. Make no mistake, we will stand up for our workers and fight for their families and their communities.
For the Canadian delegation, there is some satisfaction the deal is finally inked. But the elephant in the room remains: American tariffs on steel and aluminum. The CBC's Katie Simpson has more on that from Buenos Aires.
Senior Canadian sources don't really see this as a congratulatory moment. There is relief the new USMCA trade agreement has been signed, but deep disappointment. Canada was unable to convince the Americans to lift tariffs on steel and aluminum. The Prime Minister adamantly did not want to take part in any celebration alongside President Donald Trump until those tariffs were lifted. Yet, it still happened. Justin Trudeau looked uncomfortable, and while he spoke positively about the deal, he used the moment to urge the U.S. to change its tariff policy.
And Donald, it's all the more reason why we need to keep working to remove the tariffs on steel and aluminum between our countries.
There are no plans for formal talks between Trudeau and Trump on the sidelines of the G20, which means there's no chance the issue is going to be resolved here. Today's event is symbolic of the bitter tensions that festered during this entire process that lasted more than a year. Even Trump commented on how divisive the talks have been.
I must say, Penny Neto and Prime Minister Trudeau, we've worked hard on this agreement. It's been long and hard. We've taken a lot of barbs and a little abuse. And we got there. It's great for all of our countries.
The trade saga is not over yet. Now that the pact has been signed, all three countries have to ratify the deal to make it take effect. The process should not be a problem in Canada or in Mexico, but there is already major divisions in the U.S. Congress about whether this deal is worth supporting. The leaders of all three countries will now shift focus here today to larger global issues as they sit down for official meetings with their G20 counterparts. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Buenos Aires.
Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland met reporters after the signing. A lot of the questions were about the U.S. tariffs on...
Katie Simpson, CBC News, Buenos Aires.